Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining this session. This is the first Birds of a Feather session that we have. So this is different to our presentation sessions where people sit back and only listen and rarely speak from the floor. So the BOF is more about us having a discussion. But we're going to have a few short presentations. I think it is just good to get everybody on the same page that's in the room. So myself will just give a bit of background on what the usage patterns are looking like at CHPC. After me, Nkwe Monama will give a talk talking about scheduler stuff. And then Dora Tolby in the front will also talk about some of the cloud users, which some of you may not be so aware of. So it's a good addition to the schedule. But before I start, I think because this session is about the users and you engage with CHPC, I would like to make sure that you know who the CHPC people are. So there's quite a few CHPC staff members in the room, and I just want them to show their faces. And I'm going to start here in the front. Dora, please, everybody can just wave and tell it. Dora Tolby is, of course, the technical manager. Nkwe Monama in the front. So if you deal with Nkwe, this is what he looks like. Then I want to welcome Mervyn Christoffels. Mervyn, this is the new CHPC director. He started at the 1st of October, so that was a position that was vacant for quite some time. So Mervyn is bringing a lot of order and structure back to CHPC. So thank you very much, Mervyn, for also joining the session. Eric Mbele, system administrator at CHPC. Tembach Latshwayo. Where are we now? Anton Lopez. If you don't know Anton Lopez, just show your face. Doing the material science chemistry support. And then we have Sam Matekha. Sam is a new team member. He started on the 1st of October, I think so. So he's supporting the computational fluid dynamics and computational mechanics users. So welcome, Sam. Charles Crosby. Thanks, Charles. Also computational fluid dynamics support. Who am I missing? I'm going down the line. Benjamin Bosch. They're not seeing your face, Benjamin. Benjamin is our software developer doing, I won't start with a list of things that you are doing, Benjamin, but making sure that our operations run smoothly. Am I missing something? Normally, stand up normally, please. Normally Mfupi is our newest member. She's doing bioinformatics support. So anybody that's in the bioinformatics domain, you will start working much closer with. Normally, she only started the 1st of November. Welcome. Normally, you're seeing some of the users face to face. Am I missing anybody from CHPC? Okay, but so the people are in the room, and it's part of the idea of the session is to discuss and talk about anything that you're interested about CHPC usage. Okay, so I'm going to start off running through a few slides quickly, just for some background. Yeah, so I assume that many people here are experienced users, know about the CHPC, but I don't want to assume it for all. So I want to start off, I want to say something about NICIs, because what I'm picking up at the conference is that people know about CHPC, but the term NICIs is something that everybody's, I think, not quite understanding where it fits. So I just want to say a word about that. Something about our compute resources. Yeah, so I'm just going to recap on our compute resources, say something about the usage, who are the people at CHPC, I introduced them already. Something about training. I want to mention the new CHPC website, and then at the end, practical access. We're not going to discuss much about practical access. It's going to be about what people from the floor wants to know. Okay, next slide. So NICIS, and I want to emphasize this, NICIS is the National Integrated Cyber Infrastructure System. This is the entity that the DSI funds. So if we say we get funding from the DSI for CHPC, it actually goes to NICIS. And NICIS consists of the 3 legs, CHPC, which is the computing services, the RISA, which is the Data Intensive Research Initiative for South Africa, and SUNREN, the South African National Research Network. And I want to emphasize this because this is our close partners in delivering a service to CHPC users. Without the RISA and SUNREN, we will really struggle to deliver an effective service, because what we always say is if you have a big computer and nobody can access it efficiently through a network, and we cannot process the data that you want to bring and manage, then it doesn't help you have a fast computer. So I just want to emphasize this is what the DSI is funding, and this is where the support to users goes. But of course, for the day, we're going to talk about CHPC. Next slide, please. Next one. So just to recap, of course, all of you should know very well, Lengao is the petascale system that that you are using. It was already the second phase installed in 2017. It's going quite a few years now. So we are at the stage where we need to upgrade. So this is part of what we can announce. And Dr. Sitole also mentioned it in the opening yesterday that we are in the process of procuring a next system. So where this one is 1 petaflop, we're looking to 4 petaflops in the next calendar year. So we will keep you updated. Next. So we also want to just remind you that we have a dedicated GPU cluster that consists of 30 NVIDIA V100s. It's very heavily utilized. It's a modest in size, but it's bringing quite a, I think, a welcome resource to users, specifically for the molecular dynamics chemistry applications, but most definitely also for machine learning. And what we're currently seeing on this system is that about 50-50 is the distribution in those specific applications. Okay, the next slide. This is the cloud, the production cloud system at CHPC. And Dora will be talking shortly about some of the usage on this. This may not be so well known, but since March 2020, we have a production cloud for very specific types of users where you can configure your environment much better. But Dora will say a few more words on that. Next slide. Then I just want to say something about what is happening in terms of infrastructure-wise. What are we looking at? So for future resources, and some of them are not so far in the future, we're actually busy with it. So I already mentioned the RESA, that is the storage, say, supply. We already have an 8 petabyte storage facility on site that is in the process of being deployed. So it's not made available to users already. So if we always, when we say, well, take off your data from Luster, at least there is a space where that data can be taken to, but it still needs to be no, previous slide, please. It needs to be deployed and made available to users, but we have the infrastructure on site. We're also busy with an expansion of the production cloud infrastructure. That equipment is also on site. So that is also, we will make announcements about that. And then something that is not quite on site yet, but the procurement is quite far advanced, is the long-term archival storage. So adding to the one at the top, adding a long-term tape storage, that is slow storage, but a lot of storage space. So we're probably looking at 20 petabytes of storage that should come in the next calendar year. So we really want to address the data needs of users at CHPC. This is also a project that's done through the RESA. So if you hear the RESA, you know it's our sister entity in Nikis that is providing. So it's not only for CHPC users, but certainly CHPC users are going to benefit from this. Just go to the next slide, please. I don't know why it's jumping around. Okay, back, please. Previous slide. I'm still talking through this list. Then expanding the GPU resources. We do have the GPU cluster. We are looking to procure a next generation GPU system for users, and we're also looking towards the next financial year. So we will keep you updated on that. And then, of course, the next cluster itself. We're looking at the 4 petaflop system. The procurement process for this is quite advanced. This is it's a complicated procurement. It takes time. But we're also looking towards the next calendar year to upgrade Lengao to a 4 petaflop system. And then also associated with that cluster is a new Luster file system. So our Luster, we always talk about our Luster is old, but it's keeping up. But we will have to add Luster capacity in addition to some infrastructure we have on site. And we're also looking, this needs to be in place together at the same time as the new system is coming. So I hope it gives you a bit of a view of what's happening in the future. And you can be sure that we will announce this to users as soon as these things are more readily available. Then I just need to mention that in terms of support infrastructure, we also expanding our on-site electricity or power provisioning by a second 1 megawatt generator. All of you know that's using Lengao that we are heavily impacted by load shedding. We acknowledge it. If you are frustrated by it, times it by 10 and you will get to the frustration level that we have at CHPC. So we are addressing this. The new generator should be operational by February next year, so it's very soon. And then the cluster should not go down during load shedding, or parts of it should not go down. We also associated with that is also upgrading our cooling and chiller facilities that needs to support this. Okay, the next slide, please. So I'm just doing a quick recap on what the usage of Lengao looks like. Because Lengao is now past 6 years, it is a good resource to look at what happened over the past 6 years. So I'm just giving a very brief summary. To just look at the all-time usage of Lengao, the total number of active programs, 513. So active, we define you should have used at least more than 1,000 core hours. The total number of core hours used, 1.1 billion. So if you are using a program and you've used 1 million, it formed part of that 1,148 million CPU hours. 4 hours over that period. And the total number of active users touching on 2,000. So that gives you a bit of indication of how widely and well the system is being used. I checked, this was what I checked on the 27th of November. Next slide, please. This is just a trend over the past 6 years since we started with Lingao. I find this trend quite interesting because if you look at the orange bar, this is the number of active programs that we have on the system. And again, active is using more than 1,000 hours. You see, when we started in 2016, 17, it started slowly and then it built up. The number of active programs is ever increasing. So you will see currently in 21, 22, it is the highest ever. And what it means is that there is a demand for this CPU resource that needs to be satisfied. If you look at the blue line, that's the actual hours that is being used on Lingao. Now, initially it increased it, and about 2018, 19, it reached the highest level. It started to flatten off, and it's even dropping off a bit now. So what that means is that the cluster was just started to be used at capacity. If you use it at capacity, there is no more hours to be used. So your queuing times become longer, and then later on, it drops off a bit, and there's two important reasons for it dropping off. The first one is the cluster is getting old. Some nodes are dying. We are not replacing it. That is why we need to upgrade a new cluster. But the most important factor is actually load shedding. I mean, load shedding is taking away quite a chunk of that cluster, and the hours are not available. So you can see the bigger the difference becomes for hours used and the number of programs, the bigger the demand becomes. So that is just why we are moving towards the next system. Next slide, please. This is just quickly running through some of the active programs. Sorry, that is very small. This is just the number of active programs distributed amongst the categories of users. So the blue is the academic users. It's about 71% of all programs are from academia. The public sector in South Africa is the orange one. And then the gray one is our African partner countries from SADC and SKA. And the yellow one is the industry programs. But just next slide. If you convert that to actual hours used, you can see that the academic community is using more than 80% of all the hours on Lingao, which is good. This is where it should be because that is where most of the research is being done, and this is the research infrastructure. So that is what we would like to see, although we would like to see the private sector usage increase a bit as well. It's only around 1%, the yellow one. Next slide, please. Sorry, I don't know why it came out so small, but this is a distribution of all South African universities in terms of programs. That is being number of programs. And the only thing I really want to show here is that none of those pies or sections of the pies are dominating. And that is also what we want to see because this is a resource for the nation and for the national, say the academic institutions, and we want all of them to benefit. If you look at the next slide, it's the same kind of picture, it's just the number of hours being used. So you can see still it is distributed very evenly. Some are using less. There are some of the 26 universities that are not having any programs, but about 21 of them already have active programs on the system. Next slide, please. This is the last of the pie charts. This is just showing the different domain areas in terms of programs. So the orange one is chemistry, then the gray one is health applications, more drug discovery. The yellow one is the earth science, the climate modeling. The blue one is computational fluid dynamics. The green one, bioinformatics, then physics and astronomy. So you can see, again, it's a good distribution of domains that are being supported. It's not only one domain. But if you look at the next slide, you will see that the blue and the orange is all the hours. Well, it's all the hours being used. And blue and orange is the material science and chemistry. So more than half of all the hours on Lingao over the 6-year period, material science and chemistry. So this is just where the demand is. And this is not uncommon. We see it with many other HPC centers as well. Next slide. And this is just the publication count, what users are reporting. We are always emphasizing this in feedbacks. Please tell us when you publish papers where the CHPC played a part. Very difficult for us to get to know or know when you publish if you don't report it to us. This is the most important aspect that we need to report to our funder, because if we need something tangible to tell them, this is the investment, this is part of the output. But this is the increase in how we captured some of these papers. It's a bit haphazard. And I always say this is the worst case because there's probably many papers out there that we don't know about. But over this period, it actually started before Lingao because we have a pre-2016 bar there in the front. And the last one is still in the current calendar year, but around 2,300 paper outputs. Most of them publications, but we also count PhD and master thesis, the graduation of students as part of this. So the next slide just shows you the distribution about what papers are the most. And as you would expect, from the chemistry, material science. We also sometimes term it physics for material science. Those are the most papers, and then it drops off. Sorry about the size. It doesn't look like this on my computer. Next slide, please. And this slide I have to put up. I mean, even if I don't like it. This is the usage of Lengao, and I've just looked at the last 6 months. I just pulled this graph last night, and it shows the story of the capacity of Lengao that we make available. And you as users will be used to this. Typically, when we don't have load shedding, you have the top bars where it reaches not quite 100%, because as I told you, we cannot reach 100% anymore. We do have nodes that have died down. We don't have that 1,368 nodes. But certainly the times when it drops to 50% is when we have periods of load shedding. And it's particularly prolonged in the latter part of the 6 months. So I know this is hard for users, but we acknowledge this, and this is something that we are trying to fix by getting our on-site power generation. Next slide. Now, I just want to highlight one or two things that you may not have seen. The CHPC's got a new website, and I've seen quite a number of presentations, for example, using the old CHPC logo, and I think it's because our website took much longer to be updated. The new CHPC logo is the one that has Nikki's very prominent in it, and you will see it. So if you use our logo, please use the new one, but you will also find it on the CHPC website. So this is just the homepage. Please go and look at it. This is very much a website under construction, but the most important information is already there. For example, if you go to the next slide, under the research and collaborations, you will see there's a section on research programs where we profile research programs. These are only, I think, 4 examples for now, but this is where we're going. So all those PI feedbacks where we ask for press releases, we ask even for images, this will start to appear on the CHPC website so that anybody, because this is publicly viewable, anybody should go to the CHPC and look at. That's why we want a nice image. We want the name of your program. If somebody clicks it, there's going to be more information about, say, a project and your research group. And we will be implementing this project much more dedicated in the coming year as part of the new website. The next slide. I already talked about the support personnel, of course, the support scientist that supports all the domains. Dora, the technical manager with her team, we introduced some of them that doing the technical support. We also have the advanced computer engineering laboratory for anybody that wants, say, advice or consulting on say, HPC technology. They are also hosting the student cluster competition. And then I have that 4th bullet, trainers. We don't have people at CHPC that are just training 100% of the time. All of the above, the people that's doing that are the trainers for training events. Next slide. And this is just a summary of our training events that I really invite users to take advantage of. I mean, dedicated training events, annual events, the summer, the CHPC Coding Summer School. I'm going to say something about that just now, but also others. The CHPC Winter School in Practical HPC around June, July, August. We run that. We had to do it virtually over the last 2 years. I'm not going to say much more about it, but the HPC Ecosystems Project is working with new sites that's deploying HPC student cluster competition. You see them on the floor here. We have domain-specific workshops, unfortunately not at the conference this year, but we will probably bring it back from next year to have more workshops associated with it. Of course, the CHPC National Conference is our key engagement event. So this is also part of this. But we also have other initiatives like the Women in HPC program. That BOF, that after this one is actually dedicated to women in HPC. So I invite all of you to participate in this. This is certainly not only for women. And some outreach programs. We even had outreach with school groups and so on at this event. So the next slide, I want to emphasize the next training that's coming is the 13th CHPC Coding Summer School. And this is done in collaboration with NITHEX, the National Institute for Theoretical and Computational Sciences. If you participated in before, we've been working in collaboration with them in the past, I think it's 4 years now. We are very excited about this event. It runs from the 30th of January to the 10th of February. This is going to be a proper hybrid training event. And what I mean by that is that all training material is going to be online, but people attending the training is going to do it physically at the institution. So if you want to have details about this, I mean, there is the link. We can make sure that the link is distributed it was distributed on the mailing list. We will put it on the website. You can still register for this until the 31st of December. We already have champions from almost all academic institutions in South Africa, and even outside the borders of South Africa, where rooms will be made, say venues where people will physically go to attend this training with tutors, and the rest will be online. The reach is going to be wide. And Benjamin, that I introduced, is the main person organizing this. Benjamin, how many registrations? Are we probably around 300 people already registered? Yeah, you're checking, he's checking. So you can see the numbers. And remember, there's not a limit on the number because you are going to be um, hosted at your institution. It is just across the board, but everybody needs to register. So please consider this. This is focused on introductory coding, Linux, Python. This is what our users need. So if you're a new user or you need introduction to these kind of codes specifically, or programming methods, specifically focus on making your life easier at CHPC to use. This is the training for you. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is my last slide. So I'm not going to say much. All I want you to think of, if there's any of these things, I mean, maybe it's not even on the list. If there's any questions, say things about registration procedures, what it means to be a principal investigator, a user, these program allocations, the feedbacks, the scheduling, we will talk about scheduling, queues, wall times, limits, those kind of things. You want to talk about it. This is the session to ask questions on storage, for example, on Luster and our home storage, help desk. I'm leaving it open to the floor, but I'm going to stop it here, and I'm going to first now call Nkwe to come and just talk a bit more about the scheduling. Thanks. Thanks, Nkwe.
Thank you, Werner. Good morning, users. So I'll just talk a bit about the job scheduling at CHPC. We on a daily basis discover that there are users who are still struggling. I guess maybe because they are new users, maybe they don't have anyone to help them to be able to submit jobs properly. But we are here to help. So if you feel, if maybe you want to submit a job and you don't have an idea of what to do, please contact us. We are there to help you. There are research, Charles is here and other colleagues that are working with users directly. I tend to work with researchers more because I work with the job scheduler at CHPC. So if there are issues that Charles and others cannot resolve, they tend to come to me and ask that this user is experiencing problem. Can you please check what are the issues? They're trying to submit jobs, they're getting errors and so forth. But I just wanted to highlight a few things that are, that will help us to avoid some of the silly mistakes that have been made that are not necessary, that are, taking time for users. Instead of them doing their work, they have to wait until we respond to them and so forth. So these are the queues that we have. I'm not going to go through all of them. If you want to get that information, you can still get it on the wiki. So we encourage users to go to the wiki. That's your first place. Go there. There are examples of submission scripts that you can get there that will help you to submit jobs. I've seen some users, I guess they are old users. Maybe when they, come back to use the cluster, they tend to think that maybe the cluster is still the same. They'll be using some things like your Nahelium. We don't have Nahelium anymore. So your job will just keep on queuing forever because that resource is no longer there. So please avoid that. Just check on the wiki, and then you will see that now we are no longer using Nahelium and what's the other one? The Hypertown. Yeah. So those are very old. That's the old cluster that we used to use. So the test there is just for if you want to do compiling. But what I usually prefer is that maybe the best way to do it, if you want to compile your application, just do an interactive job session where you'll get a node and then you compile your application. The reason why I say that is that all our nodes are the same. So the libraries are the same as well. So if you compile on a node, I'm 100% sure that when you run the job, you will not get runtime errors. Because if you don't do that, if you compile somewhere, maybe you decide to compile on login 1, for instance, there might not be other libraries that are required for your application. So when you submit that job on the queue and it runs on the compute node, it will fail because now it cannot get some of the libraries that it's looking for. So the best way, do an interactive job and then get a node, and then you compile from that node, and then you're sorted. Then from there, you can just submit your your job. So we have a serial. There it's anything between 1 CPU or 1 core to 24 cores. You can use that. If you want, you need more, you have to use the SMP. SMP is from 24 and upwards. So it's from 1 node upward. And then you have that normal. The normal, it's from 2 nodes upward. Uh, and then up to 10 nodes. That's the maximum that you can get. We have Accelerates queue. That is purely for Material Studio, because the reason why we have a special queue for Accelerates is that the Accelerates application only runs under one user. So when you submit a job on the queue, when you do QStat, you will only see Accelerates running. But actually, those are multiple users from different institutions that are running. We have a way of seeing who has submitted a job. There are other options that we have put in the submission script that when you submit jobs, we can pull that information to see who exactly was running or who is running that job. But when you go and then check on the queue, you'll only realize that the jobs are running under one user. So now, because there are multiple users, we have to cater for all of them because there are many institutions. I think if not all institutions in South Africa, we have users who are using Material Studio. So that's why we have that queue, and then that is the large queue. That is basically for jobs that scaling well. And for you to submit on large queue, if you see there it says by application, you need to you have to convince us that your application can scale to those number of nodes. So we don't want you to to submit jobs on more nodes only to find that you are hogging on nodes, and then your application is only using 2 or 3 nodes. So that will be you'll be wasting actually on resources. So the best is you show us that my job can scale, and then we will give you access to that. So it's per application, as I've mentioned. The following slide. Yeah, this is the other. We have the express queue that is for contract project, and then we have the big mem. That one is if you have jobs that require large memory, more than 100 and say 120 gig, so you have to submit on that queue. And then if I'm not mistaken, you have to be added. Yeah, you have to be added to use that queue. So if you submit on it and you don't have access to it, you'll get an error that you're not authorized. So usually when you submit jobs and then you get an error that say queue sub not authorized, just know that maybe you don't have you're not authorized to run on that queue. So what you have to do is to write an email to help desk, and then we will get that ticket, and then we'll add you so that you are able to run on that queue. And then the GPU queues as well. That's what we have. Those are for per application as well, because not all applications can run on GPUs. I know we have the molecular dynamics, and then your AI and ML, machine learning applications that can run there. So that is per application as well. And then what we have realized is that in most cases, when users are submitting jobs, they tend to forget that on a node, we have system processes that are running. So system processes also require memory. So now if you are running on a you want to request 128 gig of memory on a 128 gig memory node, obviously your job will not run, because some of those memories already is allocated to system processes. System processes are there because the node cannot run without those processes running. So advice is just request 120, leave the other for system processes, so that your job will go through. Otherwise, you'll be surprised that no, my job has been queuing. I see other people's job are going through, but mine has been queuing for a long time. Those are some of the things that are causing such issues for users. They come and complain that no, I've submitted a job. It's been a week now. My job is not going through, but I see other people's job are going through. We are not doing anyone favor. So the queue itself is automated. It allocates resources depending on what you have requested. If there's a job that is running, maybe a bigger job that is queuing actually, that has to go through, and then there are no resources, that job will wait a bit until there are resources, enough resources for the job to run. So please be patient sometime. You'll get your turn and then you'll be able to run. But the advice is, please, there are two different nodes that we have actually on the cluster. The other is the 128 node memory, and then the other one is 64. So be careful when you submit what you want, where do you want your job to run. If you are specific to say I want 120, it means if the nodes that are having 120 gig of memory are all in use, your job will queue until those resources are available. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that. So if you know your application is not more of a memory intense, it just need minimal of few memory to run. Do not specify memory there unless if there's a specific reason that makes you to request that. But if you need more memory, as I've mentioned, a big mem is there for you. We have those nodes. One node has a terabyte of memory. So those is specifically made, or we bought it specifically for users who have applications that require more memory to run. This is what I wanted to talk to you about, and I know probably some of you have questions. We will address them because we are still here. I will leave this to Werner. I don't know if she will introduce Dora or if I don't know who's the chair.
What's going to happen is Dora's going to talk just about some of the cloud projects, and then once Dora is, we'll have a bit of a discussion. Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about the cloud. As Werner just said earlier on, we don't want to assume that all the users knows what addition of resources we've added. But this is one of those that we added in our environment. So my name is Dora Tobe. I'm the technical manager. I'm only having a few slides that I want to go through. And this presentation is more to say we have HPC, but we have cloud. So, and the users can use it. I will just go through it, and I'll go through the project that we're hosting. They're a little bit different from what we're having on the HPC, but you will see what we have and how you can use the cloud. Okay, so our cloud is named Seboa. It's launched in March 2020, just a few days before we go into the lockdown. That is when it was launched. And then in 2021, we upgraded the cloud, and we'll see why we upgraded the cloud as I go into the projects. And then it's running on 100 gigabit per second with 25 LAN and 10 gig for public traffic. It only have 32 compute nodes with some Intel CPU, 11 terabyte of memory, the SIF storage, 3 petabyte of storage. The storage is configured with erasure coding and keeps 3 copies. So even if you lose some of the data, we can still recover that data. So we have many applications. Some of the COVID-19 applications are running there. And currently we have 31 projects that we host in Seboa. Okay, you can see now although we're having 31 projects, the cloud is still underutilized. Hence, what we're saying, there is a resource, you can come and run. And the projects that are here, they don't need lots of resources. Those are projects or applications that we have from two CPU to 224. So you can see most of them are at the range of 2 to 60. A few of them are, but this is the only project that required 224 CPUs. That's the only project, hence I wanted to just show it. And those projects, they are all the COVID-19 projects. And hence, after we launched the Seboa, we had to take over all the COVID-19 projects because of, remember that is when now there was a resource that the users can use. I mean the Department of Health can use in collaboration with the CSRR. So the CSRR was running the application and doing all those things that we've seen on TV. So everything was modeled on Seboa and is still running on Seboa. So I can, another slide. So these are some of the slides that they shared with me. I'm not going to go through everything. I'm not a researcher. I think this project, it was actually presented in the MCHPC meeting 2021. So I'm just taking those slides so that I can showcase the projects that are running there. So most of them is the department projects, government projects, but they collaborate with the CSIR department, different research departments at the CSIR. We have maybe one or two that are external of the CSIR, but they're still research. So this is the COVID-19 dashboard. Okay. One, two. Okay, so this is the COVID-19 dashboard. Another slide. Okay, so this project, remember during the COVID, so the students had to work from home. So the Department of Higher Education and Training, they actually work with post office and then libraries to ensure that all those users that are working from home, they have access to libraries, or to the material. Hence we see post offices there, and also the Sunrun link for the transportation of data to different sites. Yes. Okay, so this project is more, so this external from the CSIR, but what they're doing, they working with databases where they checking the data of individual from the poor communities so that they can develop programs that will improve the accuracy and efficiency of those people and in terms of health and well-being. So these are some of those projects. Another slide. Okay, so remember the KZN floods. So again, we are involved on that. So we're working through the CSRR. We're working with all those organizations to ensure that the KZN province get assistance on whatever can be on roads, houses, but that is a project that is done. Also, and is hosted on the cloud. Another slide. And then the Casa Bio is more, this one is also outside of the CSRR, but it deals with the biodiversity, where they're looking at the our floras and the faunas, to make sure that they are protected. Thank you. Okay, so this one, this project started actually for a long time. It was running on our other system before we moved into the cloud, our virtual machines. We had another system, and when we had the cloud, they were the first person people also to go to the cloud, and they've been with us for a long time. So they're working with different projects. So I just picked this one because that is where more they're working with SMMEs, and then they're supporting 6 provinces where they putting in some broadband and network infrastructure for actually previously disadvantaged people in the Eastern Cape, Limpopo, and other provinces. Thank you. And then our vaccine certificate. So this is what also we're hosting at our CHPC infrastructure cloud. Okay. List or last. Okay, so to apply for the resources, that is the link. When you go to the CHPC website, you'll be able to actually apply for the resources. As you have seen, the projects are different. So if you have any application that does not need intensive resources and it doesn't scale that much, you are welcome to apply for the cloud. If you can actually really run on the cluster, or maybe they advise you that your job actually it needs something small. So rather than going back to your PC or your laptop, the cloud is there, and it's for research work and other work that some of the research collaborate with government department. And okay. Okay, so I just want to acknowledge all the cloud users who shared their slides for this presentation, and Nkwe and Ms. Mamchali for assisting me to put together this presentation. Thank you. I think, Werner.
Thank you very much, Dora. I think it is a very good opportunity, and good that this was mentioned, because I think sometimes there are different things happening at CHPC that users may be interested in, but you simply do not know. So thank you very much for this. And if anybody's interested, I mean, as Dora mentioned, the details are on the website to follow up, to check whether your application or what you want to do is maybe suited for this resource. Okay, so now I want to open the floor. Sorry, we took a bit of time, but we also will go into the break. I mean, we're going to be here. If anybody wants to talk to us, but I'm opening the floor for anybody that wants to ask a question, make a comment. I know there's, at least from Corny's side, Corny, we can start with you to what you want to comment about, but any questions. And if you have more particular, say, technical questions, maybe on the queuing, and you don't want to talk about it open here, Nkwe is going to be here, others are going to be here. But let's start, Corny, with you. I know you want to mention something. Oh, there's a microphone. You can come to the front as well if you want.
I'll just stand at the side. I asked Werner just to say a few words because many of you know me for a long time and some of you are very new faces. When the CHPC started many years ago, we formed special interest groups, and the chemistry and the material science is the only one that survived until now. And I think not all of you are aware that there's such a group. The idea of the group was, in the beginning, we had a lot of teething problems with the CHPC. So it was the place where everybody complained, and then we gathered the complaints and then we took it up with Werner or whoever was before and so forth. And then as the CHPC developed, these problems became less and less and less. And then we started looking at expertise. somebody's good in Gaussian, but there's a new group and they need training in Gaussian and so forth. So the idea was that we identify people that is willing to help with this type of training. Or Material Studios in my group, it's been used quite extensively. So from time to time, I will try to help people to start using it and so forth. So now the last 3 years, due to COVID, and this year due to trying to get used to doing everything not virtually anymore, this fell behind a little bit. So the special interest group is for the chemistry, the computational chemistry, and the material science. And I've been handling it for many years. And I just want to know, do you feel, especially the people that's in the computational chemistry and the material science, do you feel we need to continue with this and we have to revive it? And perhaps identify people that's willing to help with training, support to other people, and so forth. Something I just forgot is that after we had solved all the problems we had a time where we started trying to get protocols in place. So instead of trying to do something on the CHPC, you don't know if it's working, you have to do it on your local computer and then transfer it to the CHPC. So my question is, do you feel we need to revive this and get this going extensively again? I just see a few heads hopping and bopping around. Thank you for that. So what I'll do is when we are finished with the conference, I'll sit down and I'll compile some Google form to try to just estimate what the needs is, and for suggestions from you, please do react on it. It will come through Werner to you. Because of the POPI Act, I can't get all the emails and send it directly. So Werner will be sending the information to you then. So then we'll revive it again. And at this stage, I perhaps on the sideline, when we started the special interest group, at the South African Chemical Institute, there also was a division developed for molecular modeling. So at SACI, there's also this. And usually the person that's the chair at SACI is the one that's also involved with the SIG group. That was me for quite a few years, but I'm intending to step down beginning of the next year. But in this Google form, I'll also ask for suggestions.
Thanks, Corny. It would be best to show that interest in the Google form response and then revive. I think COVID was also part of this. Typically, we would have made room in the conference program also for this. Typically part of the workshop program that we don't have this year. So we can definitely, Corny, if this is revived, make sure that next time in the conference we give this a prominent space where people can attend and participate.
Yes, I think that was one of the things. We usually had our meeting in a lunchtime, or we had a scheduled session where we had these meetings. But because of COVID and this year being the first year again, this fell behind. We also had one of the conferences before you started with a new format of the conference, where we had a whole session where all the students and the people working, the PIs working, were showing their work, were presenting and so forth. And this is something you should also keep in mind. I also add that to the Google form. Do we need to have something for the computational chemists and the material science, where we meet somewhere in the year, halfway through, and just present our work, especially for the students?
Okay, no, that sounds good.
There's a question on Zoom.
Yep.
From Solomon Dindi. So it's two questions. The first one, what factors led to the failure of the other special interest groups? The second one, what do you want to answer that first?
Yeah, maybe I can answer that. I mean, as far as I know, and I think the special interest groups were even formed before I got to CHPC in 2014. My impression is, and somebody can correct me, that those other special interest groups never got off the ground. So it's not like there's something that was running well and then it failed. It simply meant that it never got off the ground. And I think the point to be made there, when we talk about special interest groups, this is not something that the CHPC is driving. This is not something we decide at CHPC, we want these special interest groups and now we make it happen. It's about coming from the community. So if you from a particular domain, so like Corny is from the computational chemistry, material science, then within that community, the special interest group operates and the CHPC simply supports it. We give you the platform, we give you the opportunity, say at a conference like this to engage in your activities. So I think that should answer the question. So if it doesn't come off the ground, it's because the community didn't make it happen.
Werner, can I just chip in here? What the people must remember that most of the material science is from out of physics originally. But now many of the computational chemistries is also working in the material science field. There's also chemical engineering people that joined this special interest group. So it was coming from the community. The idea started from the CHPC side. So at some of these previous conferences before Werner was involved, we would have had sessions where we divided into the special interest group. But I think if you look at the number of people using, most of us are either computational chemists or we are material science, most of us. And I think that's one of the reasons, because that was the biggest community, that it really continued working. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay,
Good.
I'm
Second
gonna
question. Yeah.
jump to the second one. So based on your experience, what would you recommend as the best way to manage various user groups?
Well, I think the best way, and again, Corny can speak to this, you need a champion. You need somebody that pulls this together. So the group needs to have some structure to coordinate what they want to do. You either have, at first you have, say, let's call it a chairperson, but also maybe a few individuals that's part of your committee, and then you manage the activities, because at some point you need to do something proactively for the community to start working together. Corny, maybe you can comment again.
Yes, from the beginning, it was like one woman, first a one man and then a one woman show, where we were directly involved with when Werner and his teams started planning a conference and trying to organize for the group. But I think part of what I spoke about a little bit earlier is to get more people involved, especially for training of students, especially for you want to do something, somebody else has done it. You don't have to discover the wheel. So we need to talk to each other, because if we work together, then we're going to progress faster. And if anybody wants to be involved, I think we can make it stronger. And that's the idea of identifying people that's available for, especially like the training, for some Gaussian training, for Material Studios training, for Quantum Espresso training, any type of software that we need, and also to identify what's redundant, what doesn't which software is not being used anymore, and what's new on the market, what's somebody using that other people want to use, but it's not available. So it's all those things. But I think the big thing is there must be somebody that's prepared to take it on and try to drive it. And then there must be people like a committee to try to do some of the other things like arranging workshops and so forth. And that's something that we haven't done extensively yet. But I think it's something where we can expand.
Yeah, thanks, Corny. I think I can just confirm that from a CHPC perspective, we are committed to support this. The CHPC is very much focused on supporting the demand from the users. And this is a perfect way to bring it to their attention. You can be sure we will make, say, facilities like this available, or opportunities like this available for the group to benefit from such a special interest group. Yeah, I will do. Dora is just mentioning, maybe before I forget, I mean, I did send out the mail. There is, for the first time in a long time, there is maintenance on the Lingao cluster scheduled for next week, Tuesday, the 6th of December. So it will be down from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock in the evening. So I'm just mentioning this again. Initially, I could communicate we're going to put a reservation, but Nkwe, you confirmed it's a bit difficult putting reservations when half of the cluster is down. So unfortunately, we'll be switched off at 8 o'clock on Tuesday morning, and jobs will be lost. So just keep that in mind. Sorry. there's a question. I'm going to give you opportunity just now, Anton.
Yeah, there's one last question on Zoom. It's from Dr. KW Poshoko. Is there any comment concerning the aid cabinet not on backup power, as this translates to workload interruptions?
Yeah, I think I tried to talk about it. I mean, this is a big challenge for CHPC. The on-site generating capacity, we have a 1 megawatt generator. It is simply not enough to run all 19 compute racks of Lingao. Power demands are just too much. And that is why we've been involved in a project of putting additional on-site generator capacity down. It's took much longer than we were anticipated. I mean, a second 1 megawatt generator, so it brings us to 2 megawatts of power on-site is what we are implementing. And that second generator is on site already. I've seen it with my own eyes. There's a completely new building that was built for it. The people are, as we speak, pulling the cables in the data center. And this is the target is to have it fully ready by February, and that the cluster will then not be impacted by that. There was a hand just at the back first, when just.
Hello. Okay. Hi, Werner. So yeah, just an extension of your comment on the increase in the generator capacity. How is that going to affect the next generation of the CHPC with the 4 petabyte upgrade that you're looking at? Will that second generator allow for 100% availability of that new generation cluster?
Yes. So I can confirm, yes. I mean, the surplus capacity that we bring on site will cover the next system as well. I think the important thing to realize, Lingao is a 7-year-old HPC system. The point is that technology has advanced so much that a 4 petaflop system takes up the same volume and space as the 1 petaflop system, and the power requirements is not significantly more than Lingao. So that is why this capacity is sufficient. Okay. Quinn, you wanted to ask?
Is it on? Yeah. I was actually going to ask that same question, but I think maybe first of all, just from our side, because I think you guys get it in the neck a lot, and just congratulations for dealing with load shedding in any way possible, and at least keeping some of the machine up and running. I think it's been pretty extraordinary times, and I just want to say that from our side, you guys have done that. We think you've done an excellent job. I was just actually going to ask a question as well about all the new storage capacity that you guys are bringing online through Derisa. Is that going to be pretty much seamlessly integrated with existing CHPC programs and things, kind of like we get CPU hour allocations, will we get storage allocations and things? Okay, good.
Yes, that's the whole idea. So that as we procure this equipment, the policies are being developed. So Derisa develops their policy, because remember that storage is much wider. It's also for people that's looking only for archival kind of storage, but we certainly will be for CHPC users as well. So as we have a policy on Luster, there will be policies on the second tiers and the third tiers of storage. So we're talking about a hierarchical system where you're going to have the current Luster, which is fast but temporary, versus say the tape, which is very slow but very permanent, where data will be backed up 3 times and you will not lose it.
That's going to be a really good addition.
So this, yeah, we will communicate on this as we implement. Sorry, yeah, Kingsley.
Hi. You talked about uploading papers, so that's a very administrative, tedious thing. So I was thinking you can implement something like what the NRF does, where it's just linked to your Scopus, so I can just upload papers. If it's not CHPC related, it's just easy just to delete instead of having to type each paper. I think I'm really behind in that aspect.
Yeah, we had the discussion previously, and after we spoke about it, we did take it up internally as well. And for example, Benjamin is updating our systems or looking at the systems. What we don't want, we probably will not do exactly what the NRF does, because the NRF is interested in every single paper. The CHPC is interested in the papers where the CHPC is acknowledged. If we simply go and extract all the papers that PIs publish, we will not get a true reflection on what the CHPC did. We want the CHPC ones, and that is why we leave it. The onus is on the PI to tell us which of the CHPC ones. But making the process of uploading simpler, there I fully agree. For example, if you have DOI and you only want to put in that DOI link, then it should populate what we need. I mean, that we agree. So we are definitely looking into this. it's not there yet, but we agree. When for us, it's important to get it. So if we can make it easier for the PIs to upload, it's going to be to our benefit and to the PIs benefit.
Thanks.
Okay. Then I want to give Anton just a chance to talk about. Oh, first another point. Okay. We need to record. We need to record what you're asking.
Wondering if you can mention if you have or mention more about the wiki pages and easy scripts for chemistry materials.
Well, you can mention Anton, because the wiki page at CHPC is open to the public. I mean, nobody needs even to be a registered user of the CHPC. If you go to wiki.chpc.ac.za, you get detailed information about how to use the CHPC. And I think Anton is just emphasizing that is continuously being updated. So if you have a question and you have not first looked at the wiki, I would advise you first look at the wiki. The chance that somebody else has asked that question is quite good. But yeah, we are always welcome to send your queries to help desk, but we will probably then refer you to the wiki if the answer is there. Krishna, welcome. You can ask a question.
Okay, no, mine is not a question, it's more a suggestion. So depending on how successful the summer school is, which is currently going to be held, right, with the whole hybrid thing, I think that would be a good idea for the SIG as well. That we then get all these computational people together and we have sort of a hybrid event where every university, all the students are there, get all your postgrads. And then, of course, I'm happy to help where you need help.
Thanks, Krishna. Krishna is one of the champions for University of Johannesburg now. We also have others, previous CHPC people like Andrew Gill from Stellenbosch University. These are the champions, but we've got many others. And we are really appreciative about how I would want to say people are so supporting this from the academic community. They're enthusiastic about it, that we are very pleased about this training coming up. It's going to be a test for us. Okay, I see we are running over a bit. Can we maybe just as a last point, then we can stop the formal activities in the room, but we can remain if there's more questions. But to hand over to Anton, or who's going to talk about the CCP5. Okay, I'm not sure what.
All right. So just that Anton was so kind that we have added a short session on DL poly. So for anyone that is interested in using molecular dynamics, as I was mentioning in my presentation, there is this software, DL poly. So there is a possibility of discussing with one of the developers. So we are going to have a meeting tomorrow at 1:15. I don't know where though. Emerald here. No, here, no. Emeralds, is where there's going to be someone from the UK who is the developer of DL Poly. So we can have a discussion about possible training on the software, but also the possibility of modification or inclusion in the software of things that might be interesting for perhaps a large group of people working here. So if you're interested, please come.
Not sure if there'll be any other codes also on CCP5. Not sure if that can also be discussed. And yeah, a slightly different point is, do other people calculate transport properties from molecular dynamics? Because we can also discuss that too. I've got a very nice post-processing code that can, well, it's someone else's obviously, but yeah. Thanks.
I think the message, anybody that's interested in material science applications, maybe go and, if you have, take a bit of your lunchtime break, 1:15 tomorrow, go to Emerald, go and listen about maybe specific DL poly, but you might pick up on other opportunities or information about it. It's material science specific applications. Okay, I think we are a bit over the time. Apologies for this. So what I want to do is to officially close or formally close the session, and we can stop the streaming and so on, for example. But anybody that wants to remain to discuss any particular topic with any of the people at CHPC are most welcome. Thank you very much for attending. We will keep having these sessions at least at the CHPC conference. Maybe we should make it a bit longer. I think we're running out of time. But thank you very much for the interest and all the best. Thank you.